Good afternoon and welcome to The Rundown. I am your host, Captivating Christian, and here are some of your top stories for today, the 15th of September. The Postal Police Union sues the USPS Postmaster General DeJoy over limit to the mail theft enforcement authorities. The union argues that the unilateral changes to the USPS managers violates their collective bargaining agreements. Also, the ambush LA police who were shot near the Compton police station are allegedly linked to a gang of rogue officers. And Trump says that he feels no responsibility to understand the anger of Black Americans in the new Woodward book. Father of three, Florida Democrat Andrew Gillum, age 41, reveals that he is bisexual in the first interview since being inebriated in a Miami hotel room with a gay escort. And violence erupts in Pennsylvania City after officer kills a man. When the body cam footage is released, turns out that the narrative circulating on social media was not accurate. How white supremacist cops use ghost skins to stay hidden, according to one former neo-Nazi. And the Georgia deputy fired after Black man's beaten after a traffic stop video becomes public. Let's get to the news. The Postal Service last month abruptly ordered its police officers to stop investigating mail thefts that occurred away from the Postal Office property. The Postal Police Officers Association alleged on Monday are suing the Postmaster General, DeJoy, to block a change that they say could corrode the safety of mail carriers and delivery. The Postal Service suddenly change is unwarranted and contrary to the language of the statute and also the collective bargaining promises it has made to the officers' union. The association said that its lawsuit filed in federal district court in Washington, D.C. Per the union, the USPS implemented the change on August 25th, a day after DeJoy testified to Congress amidst mounting concerns that the policy changes he implemented were delaying mail services and could jeopardize the record numbers of mail-in ballots expected in the presidential election. Postal police officers have arrested countless individuals for all manners of crimes away from postal real estate, either by themselves or in concert or connection with other agencies. The association notes that these officers were often tasked with conducting searches and seizures of arrested individuals with the evidence obtained used to help secure criminal convictions and imprisonment. The union argues that the unilateral change to the USPS managers violates the collective bargaining agreement with the Postal Police Officers Association. The union is asking a judge to block the policy change pending arbitration and to declare that the USPS leaders acted out of their statutory authority. USPS declined to weigh in on the details of the suit, citing its general posture not to comment on pending litigation. Good afternoon, I am Captivating Christian, and this is The Rundown, where I give my personal views on the stories of this afternoon. Alright, so before we get started, I'd like to say welcome to all new subscribers and watchers. Hopefully you like, share, and subscribe, and hit that red notification button so you never miss another update of what's going on here at Cap Hill. To my state reps, which are you in the chat, welcome, welcome, welcome. So let's have some fun, shall we? Alright, so the first story we have here, of course, should not surprise anybody. It's not about Trump. It's about actually the postal police officers. The Postal Police Union is suing the Postmaster General, DeJoy, for basically undercutting what they do. Now, what they do, they are actually police officers, and they arrest people from fraudulently opening other people's mails, stealing packages, so on and so forth. And they also are there to protect the mail, the ballots, the mail-in ballots and things of that nature. And he has cut them in this new kind of program that DeJoy tried to do, of course, to help Trump win the election. He has cut a lot of their funding, and so they won't be able to secure the election ballots. And who is not surprised? Me. They're trying to do anything they can to disrupt this election. This election will be far more important even from Gore and Bush. This will be a generation of a voting generation for the ages, just like Gore and Bush, the whole dimple chads and that whole mess that happened down in Florida. Imagine that times the 50 states. Interesting, isn't it? And especially just the states initially that he needs to win, those Midwestern states like Ohio and all those states, Florida. But imagine it could be other places as well that we just don't know about it yet. So I just plan on this being a whole mess. And just prepare yourselves for it. Anybody who does have an absentee ballot or a mail-in ballot, I suggest you fill it out as soon as possible and either mail it in if you're comfortable, but if you're not comfortable, they do have locations where you can drop off your ballot. I ask that you find out where those locations are at your local Republican or Democratic voting offices. They should be able to give you that information. All right. But I do encourage everyone to vote. It is so important that we vote. The pair of cops ambushed Saturday evening in California was shot near the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. The police station in Compton, a location reportedly rife with rogue officers who are part of a gang called the Executioners. The officers who were shot were reportedly fighting for their lives and in critical condition after a gunman ran up to their squad car and began firing into the window before running away. The Los Angeles Sheriff's Department had tweeted that one male deputy and one female deputy were ambushed as they sat in their patrol vehicles, adding that both of the officers underwent surgery and that the suspect was still at large. The circumstances surrounding the shooting were not immediately clear. However, the Los Angeles Times has reported that the sheriff's detectives on Thursday shot and killed a man in Compton who they said opened fire on them as they served a search warrant. In fact, the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department had been the subject of numerous recent reports of corruption in addition to alleged abuse of deadly force when it's not warranted. One whistleblower Los Angeles Sheriff's Department deputy recently brought to the attention to the Los Angeles Times reported as a band of deputies with matching tattoos that wield vast power of the Compton station and celebrates deputies shooting gang members. The Los Angeles Sheriff's Department deputies who filed the claim against the Los Angeles County says that cops in the alleged gang called the Executioners each have tattoos of a skull and a Nazi image and an AK-47. The claim also alleges that the Executioners or members were involved in setting illegal arrests, quotas, and threatening work slowdowns. which involve ignoring and responding slowly to calls. This story here, how can I put this? Well, all right, so police officers have been shot, and they have news update that they have seemed to have made it through their surgeries, and so far on the way of recovering from these gunshot wounds. However, new information has come out daily that that these officers that were shot were part of what they like to call rogue officers. But let's be very clear, I've said it times before, that the police department, a lot of them are gangs, and they dibble and dabble in criminal activity along with a lot of these other gang related things for profit or protection or whatever it is. And this sheriff's department is no different. In LA, they call themselves the executioners, call themselves the executioners, and they all have matching tattoos in this unit, and they go around and terrorize or add drugs to other criminal activities, giving them more charges and things of that nature. The same kind of crooked stuff that we've seen on movies like Training Day or any other crooked cop kind of narcotics kind of movie. Okay, now with that said, there was this whole big thing of when they were shot that, oh my gosh, you see, look what's going on, these animals, these barbarians. And it was, we have to find the killer, we have to find the shooter, but nobody's mentioned the fact that these officers are engaged in illegal activity with the particular gangs that they involved themselves with. So that's how this stuff happened. But you won't talk about that. You'll just go looking for the perpetrator, right? Because these are people that's supposed to be protecting and serving communities. Get the hell out of here. A lot of these police are gangs, and they use their authority to enforce other criminal activity, to engage in criminal activity and make money off it, because these pensions and things are not making them money. And what makes them instant cash is dibbling and dabbling with these drug cartels, because it's not the dealers, because the dealers don't make as much money as the cartel people do. And granting them safe travel of their drugs or places to stash it and things of that nature. So it's a whole big large scheme here, and I'm glad that it's starting to come to the surface so we can stop placating and acting like these that a lot of these officers are just doing such great jobs, and we don't understand why all of these shootings are happening and this, that, and the other. All this stuff is going on. It's because a lot of times the police are in on it, and they're allowing it to happen because it suits their narrative, or it covers up the dirtiness that they're doing. So with that said, I'm all for it. I wish the whole story would come out, and I wish a lot of the news media would report on these crooked cops, as well as they report on the cops when they do get gunned down for things of that nature. I wish they report on the crookedness, but they don't want to, because you know what happens when they find out that they participated in criminal activity like this? They lose their pensions, and they don't want the cops to lose their pension, but they can commit the activity, but then you worried about their pensions. Well, if they weren't worried about it, why should we? President Donald Trump told journalist Bob Woodward that he does not believe that because of his privileged upbringing, he has a responsibility to understand the anger and pain felt by Black Americans, according to a new book by Woodward. The Washington Post, where Woodward is associate editor, reported excerpts of his book called Rage on Wednesday and posted audio clips on the website. The book, set to be released on Tuesday, is based in part of the 18 on the record interviews Woodward conducted with Trump from December to July. During the conversation on June 19th, Woodward, whose father was a lawyer and judge in Illinois, pointed out that he and Trump were white and privileged and asked if that affected his thinking. Trump answered, "No. You really drank the Kool-Aid, didn't you? Just listen to you. Wow. No, I don't feel that way at all." Woodward describes Trump's voice as mocking. Woodward pressed Trump on understanding the plight of Black Americans who have endured discrimination and unequal treatment, and Trump claimed, as he does publicly, that he has done more for Black people and any other president other than Abraham Lincoln. Alright, so in this particular story that Trump would probably consider to be,
"You are fake news,"
he is talking about Bob Woodward's book. Now, Bob Woodward, again, he is a reporter in the Nixon era who had a book out before, talking about the dishevelment of the White House since Trump has taken office and the craziness of nobody has control and he's a big baby and all. So he comes out with his second book called Rage. Now, it's very funny how he always comes out with these books after all this taping that he has with the president of this candid conversation, and then all of a sudden later it comes out. Now, those of us who know Donald Trump like that know that back in the day he would create these fake stories and about himself and put it in the paper himself as some by another name, another alias name. So I'm not surprised that here you have a president, telling the truth to a reporter and act like, this is a candid thing, and then when it comes out publicly to deny it and call it,
because you'd be in jail,
fake news, right? Because he claims that somebody will be in jail. So here we are with this surprise, he doesn't feel like his privilege or his upbringing bears any bearing on the struggles or the hardships of African American people, that he should not be responsible, that he has nothing to do with it. Now, be that as it may, even if he did feel that way, you mean to tell me that all your toe-tapping, boss people like Mr. I wouldn't even call him a pastor, but that Scott character, that is one of his minister advisors, Omarosa used to be, until she stopped drinking the quote-unquote Kool-Aid, and anybody else who kind of, he's done so much for Black people, and this man keeps bringing up that he's been the only president to do so much for African Americans other than Abraham Lincoln, and the only thing Abraham Lincoln did was free slaves due to the fact that he kind of sort of had to, because if he didn't, they were kind of on the verge of losing anyway. I'm just a bit confused by that. You can even say, how could you even say that you've done more than Lyndon Baines Johnson, who, came out of the Civil Rights Act? Is kind of bewildering to me. But it shows your lack of historical education. It shows your bigotry, because the only thing you think profited Black people, or that was a big advancement to Black people, was that a president freed them from being slaves. Not the contributions that Black people have done or anything of that nature, but just the fact that since then, the only contribution that from you to then was them being freed from slavery. That's it. Makes no sense to me. Yeah, that man's dumb. And at this point, anybody who is sitting up there and you're an actual black person and you're voting for him saying that he cares about black people and that he's not a bigot, he's not a racist, he's not a xenophobe and all these things, you'll be lying to yourself, to your children, and to whomever else believes you and follows you, which I hope is not a lot of people, because they would have a sad life. I don't even like these. Former Florida Democratic gubernatorial candidate Andrew Gillum came out as bisexual in an interview with Tamron Hall on Monday. The admission came as part of his first interview since he was found inebriated in a Miami hotel room in March with a male escort who overdosed on meth. The father of 3 entered into a rehab facility to deal with his alcohol abuse shortly after the incident and revealed to Hall that he has cried every day since then. Gillum was pictured unconscious and naked with Dyson in photos, surrounded by a slew of drugs, both prescription and illegal. Gillum denies that he and Dyson shared a romantic or sexual relationship. During the hour-long segment, Gillum revealed that his downward spiral first began after his close loss to Ron DeSantis back in 2018's Florida's gubernatorial race. Gillum's wife, however, also spoke about her husband's struggle and said that she's been aware of his bisexuality since they married in 2009. All right, so here we have the story of Andrew Gillum's first interview since he was caught, out there with a male escort who had overdosed off of meth. All right, so a lot to unpack in a little bit of time, but I will say this. I mean, it was okay. It wasn't. At this point I expected more. I expected you to just, kind of say it was what it was, meaning either, bisexual for some is especially like a safe haven because it always gives people hope that you could, go back. How long this has been going on, I don't know. I think that could have been a question that was asked. His wife said that she's known about his bisexuality since they were married in 2009, but then she also said in the interview that had she known earlier, well, not in this interview, but in a previous interview, that had she known earlier, she don't know if she would have married him. She was a lot younger then, and she's learned a lot since then. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, and for everybody's situation is different, and who you choose to love is your business, and and how you work that out is entirely up to you. But I think we get into tougher spots when we try to make something fit. It's almost like a puzzle piece when you try to fit something that doesn't quite fit. And it just doesn't, only because either you're afraid to be yourself, or you're afraid of what being yourself would look like as far as your political career or your career in general. And I think in some spaces we need to move past that, because that's the only way people can genuinely see you for who you are. I mean, the drug thing, I think people would have probably even gotten over that or even looked past that a little bit, because there are certain drugs, to be very honest with you, there are certain drugs that people, like black people, really don't know too much about, very little, unless you dibble and dabble in those type of circles, like the crystal meth and all that kind of stuff. That's more of a Caucasian type of thing. But some black people do know of it because they, tangle in those kind of circles. So certain things would have probably been like, okay, so you have a drug problem, you go to rehab. But I think especially for our community, the black community, it is very hard for a lot of black people, especially churchgoers and stuff, to accept a politician, black man, being gay. So it's best to always say bisexual. So then that way you can always, there's hope to pray it away. There's hope that, you'll come around and love your family. And because plus you have a family. And some people have to just come to terms with, a lot of people had families just to appease the rest of everybody else, while they still had feelings for the other side of themselves. They had a family, they did all these things to appease themselves and to move themselves further in their career, so they wouldn't get questioned and things of that nature. So we get here, and it is unfortunate that a rising political star gets knocked down by this, but it was a choice he made, unfortunately. I just think that when people know your vices, it's easier for them to attack you, and this is just one vice that they happen to slip up and let out, and the powers that be ran on it, and it ended the way it ended. I don't know. I mean, I wish him all the best, him and his family or whatever. But I do believe it's not impossible for them to create a different family unit that works for them. Whether she, moves on and marries and dates somebody else, and he finds someone and they co-parent, that's okay too. It's not a failure. And we have to stop looking at these European images of what a family is supposed to be, when we were taken from a land of our own and used as breeding cattle to, build a nation. We have to create our own kind of images of what our families would look like. And everybody's family is not going to look the same. And we need to stop trying to mirror our families to what somebody else's image of family is, when these same people who are trying to put up these images and make sure you follow their images of family are doing the same exact thing, sometimes even worse. I.e., case in point, the person I always talk about, Lady G. Lady G he's never been married. There's a whole thing in the Senate, in the Hall of Congress, calling him Lady G, Lady Graham, Lady Grantham. It's crazy. So, I don't know. It's just real unfortunate that his career has gone the way it has. I say just be true to who you are. Be true to who you are. Continue to get help. And fight back and really, become the politician that you want to see in the world, And I think he can do it. I think he can definitely do it. It's going to take some work, but I think he can do it. Hey, this is Captivating Christian here to remind you to tune in to Politics and Wellness every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Politics and Wellness every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. You never know what you might get. Lancaster, a city southeastern of Pennsylvania, became the latest city to experience racial unrest following the fatal shooting of a man by police on Sunday. But the narrative that was circulating on social media in the immediate aftermath of this tragic incident was completely congruent with the facts of the case, which were made public when the Lancaster police released the body cam footage of the officer who fired the fatal shots. Social media posts claimed that the police killed an autistic teenager who was unarmed. This claim triggered the same cycle of unrest that many of American cities have experienced this summer. Tense confrontations with police, which became violent, resulting in the destruction of property. According to the Lancaster police, officers responded to a domestic disturbance on Sunday afternoon when officers made contact with the individuals involved. A man began chasing one of the officers with a knife. The officer responded by firing his weapon, striking and killing the man. The police then confirmed that the deceased person was not a teenager, but rather a 27-year-old man. Police also then released the body cam footage confirming that the deceased man did in fact chase the responding officers in a threatening manner with a knife. Okay, this particular story coming out of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, there was a conflicting story. A young man was gunned down by police officers. And during this time, of course, it was a lot of civil unrest due to the racial activity going on between the police using brutal force and killing unarmed black people. So this young man was shot and killed by the police, and then of course it went to social media and Lancaster became a place of unrest. Now, Lancaster is familiar to me because my school was not too far from there, the Lancaster Outlets, and that's where my dad and my mom would go all the time when they came to visit me on the weekends. But so that happened, and unfortunately this young man had lost his life. However, later on, the body cam footage came out to kind of quail the unrest of the growing unrest of the town. And of course, I get it. Sometimes they hold on to this information for two reasons. One, to kind of doctor it so that the media does not spin it out of control. And then they have these large groups of people coming to some of these small towns to protest. I get it, but I don't get it. Because a lot of times, if these things were not so common, we would not have to do that. And you do it to bring attention to what is going on, to make you see, to give notice that we see you, we see what you're doing. So I don't knock him. I don't knock the unrest that is going on, because it brings attention to something that is so dire. It needs attention. It doesn't need to be swept under the rug. It's swept under the rug so much to the point where, it becomes a bit crazy. So anyway, the body cam footage does come out, and however, it paints a different story. It shows that the young man did actually approach the officer with a knife, and that's why he was shot and killed. Now, I disagree with, again, shooting to kill, even with a knife, because, again, we've seen images of white people chasing other white officers with other objects, and they are not shot and gunned down to kill. They are either tased, they are either shot in some other extremity to where in which it can disable them, and then they can take them down, but not killed and murdered. So I don't know. And then two, we need to work on getting some kind of mental health advocate in between officers and the people, something to where in which people can better deal with that, even if it's like shooting them with a sedative or something. I really just don't know what is the point of instantly killing someone, rather than some other kind of way to subdue them. And then you sitting there like, well, look, I was justified, but how? Granted, if you're getting a call for a domestic situation, you already know that there is something going on. You don't know what you're walking into, right? So the thing would be to either have someone on site that can deal with what that might be, because it might be something mental. And if you're not capable to handle something mental, the first thing you're going to go to is shoot to kill, when in fact it could be something mental that they cannot help. So then therefore you get the people involved that actually are familiar with it, so they know how to handle it. I don't know, I just find it to be a bit like lack of, but there's no purpose for anyone to look for an alternative other than shoot to kill. But there needs to be. Frank Meek, a former neo-Nazi who inspired the 1998 film American History X, is making people take a second look at the police. In an interview with the Daily Beast, he alleged that white supremacists he formerly knew are now cops. Meek opened up about his experience with ghost skins, a practice white supremacists use to hide overt displays of their beliefs to blend in with the general public. According to Meek, nationalist leaders with ties to law enforcement would often vet members of the neo-Nazi group he was affiliated with in the 80s and 90s, and some of his former associates are now policemen. Meek says nationalist leader and high-ranking members of the Ku Klux Klan like David Duke, who encourage young people within the organization to join the police force, and Meeks recalls that one rally in the 90s when they were told to cover up their swastikas, grow out their hair, and become cops. Meeks claimed that the purpose of the neo-Nazis and other white supremacist hate groups to join the police force was primarily to disenfranchise people of color, black people especially, by targeting them specifically during arrests and placing heavy charges on them that could potentially affect their rights. Okay, and this story highlights the police force and how Frank Mink, he is the former neo-Nazi who inspired American History X. And those of you who have not seen the movie, I advise you to take a look at it. It is it's a good movie. I mean, it's pretty, not gory, but it's pretty some scenes that are very tough to watch, but it shows the transformation of a neo-Nazi going to prison for a particular neo-Nazi kind of crime, kind of changing his life around after being in jail and being treated the way he was treated by his fellow Aryan brothers, and then coming back home to see his brother involved in the same thing and trying to show him a better way without giving too much away, right? But go check it out. It's a good movie. So anyway, what this neo-Nazi or ex-neo-Nazi is saying is basically what a lot of us have been saying for the longest time, that the white supremacist groups, the KKK and other neo-Nazi groups, have infiltrated in the police departments. That even during the 80s and 90s, David Duke, who's now a congressman or a senator, congressman definitely, but for his local state, not for actual Congress. But he had been pushing for people in the Ku Klux Klan as well as other Aryan nations to start growing their hair and joining the police force and kind of hiding all of their neo-Nazi swastika things and join the police force. This way they could have better control over areas of color and people of color. And you could see with all this going on that is their main purpose, even with the George Floyd situation and the way he just smirked and looked at the people holding their phones recording him killing this man. You could see it blatantly in his face. He did not care about the life he was taking, because the life he was taking didn't matter to him, and he was basically telling to the rest of the world, this could be you, this will be you next. And that in and of itself is disgusting and deplorable. But nonetheless, again, yes, we have these people in our police departments, and that's why, again, the call is being made to defund police departments, not to get rid of the police, but to defund them, to actually uproot these well-established police department gangs and get them out of here. And if that means you got to start from scratch and get everybody new, then that means you would have to get everybody new, or something has to be done, because obviously it's been infiltrated by these white supremacist groups, and they have taken control. It's just as plain as day. It's either you have a problem with it or you don't. And when you don't have a problem with it, again, your silence is complacency, which means you're okay with it. And that in and of itself is a problem. That people can't even be in their own communities without the onset of violence, not even from their own peers, but from the people who are in charge to protect and serve them. It's a huge problem. And be sure to join Jay Wilson, Rebel Sun, The Official Kingpin, Conscious TV, and Captivating Christian this and every Thursday at 6:45 Central Standard Time, 7:45 Eastern Standard Time for the Gentleman's Panel, where we are not afraid to go there and discuss an array of topics. See you there. A Georgia deputy sheriff has been fired following the investigation into a video showing a black man being beaten on an Atlanta street during a traffic stop on Friday. The unidentified deputy was terminated for excessive use of force during an arrest to Roderick Walker, age 26. The Clayton County Sheriff's Office said on Sunday. In the video, Walker is pinned down by two white deputies as one of them punches him in the head, leaving him bloody and at times unconscious. His attorney, Sean Williams, said at a press conference. A Georgia deputy sheriff has been fired following an investigation into a video showing a black man being beaten on an Atlanta street during a normal traffic stop on Friday. The unidentified deputy was terminated for excessive use of force during an arrest of Roderick Walker, age 26. The Clayton County Sheriff's Office said on Sunday. In the video, Walker is pinned down by two white deputies as one of them punches him in the head, leaving him bloody and at times unconscious. Okay, and just like I talked about that last story about the white supremacists actually infiltrating their way into the police fabric, of course, even that goes back way further than David Duke. We're talking about slave catchers and all that kind of stuff. That's where the foundation of the policing came from slave catchers, from low income, poor white people, and sometimes even black people who were paid to catch slaves, runaway slaves, kidnap black people into slavery, and all types of mess. So here we have a case where this video had went viral of these two police officers beating a man for a traffic stop, and sometimes he was even unconscious as they was, telling stop resisting, that famous word that they like to yell out when they're beating you half to smithereens until you stop resisting. But my biggest problem with this was that it was in front of his children, in front of it was a child there and the girlfriend as well. And I just think that that's a tactic used to cause lasting damage to children, to make them utterly afraid of the police and their authority, and to never go against their authority. And I think it's constantly been used to project that onto children and to keep that kind of generational thing going, to where in which you always fear the police. You will never trust them, nor would you undermine their authority, because they have the authority to take you out of here, to be judge, jury, and executioner. And although maybe a lot of officers say, I don't see it that way, but that's just the image that you portray when you do things like that in front of children, creating lasting images of the dangers that you possess. So, yeah, with that, I'm glad this officer has been terminated, but it's unfortunate that all of these lives had to be lost in order for people start to take action and immediately terminate these officers instead of like giving them assignment with pay until you quote unquote investigate, and just fire them right off the bat. For the conduct alone, they need to be fired. Then you can go back and investigate whatever has been done to either further, okay, the termination stands, or you can be rehired. But something needs to be done. Again, you put these cops in situations where they do these type of things, and so they don't lose their pensions and things of that nature. You give them time to set up shop and pull out the pension funds, whatever they can pull out before they can no longer pull out anything, or use the insurance for a certain amount of days before they can't use that. You give them that window, and I think at this point we need to stop pandering to these types of thugs and criminals, because they're definitely thugs and criminals and gang leaders, and we need to treat them as such. Right. And once again, thank you for watching CCN Midday News. Hope you enjoyed. Please like, share, and subscribe. Also hit that notification button so you will never miss another news update. Have a great day. Peace.